Okay, so we're getting started with the first presentation. The theme for this presentation is leading UX design. I'm not going to talk about being a team leader. It's more like leading a project. So whenever we have to, as designers, when we have to lead an idea or we are assigned to lead a project from start to end, and we're facing difficulties. And depending on the situations or companies that we're working on, there are certain environments and certain difficulties that we have to face. And because most recently I was working with both corporations and startup, I had these extreme experiences of jumping from big corpos with hierarchies and restrictions to new startups when there is freedom, but with freedom comes a lot of trouble and misorganization. So I was reflecting recently about these changes and experiences and wanted to make a presentation comparing the two, and maybe it will help you also. So my name is Marin. I'm originally from Albania. I've been living for the past 5-6 years outside and been working with different projects, from small organizations to startups, to mature startups, and to also corporations. And sometimes I've been leading projects, sometimes I've been part of the teams, and this is something that I wanted to share. So in the experience when we want to lead an idea, so whenever we are in a leading position or when we are part of a team that is assigned a project and now we have to get it going. So what are three most important things to make any idea come to life? It's balance, direction, and speed. So just like a runner or a sprinter who wants to run this 100 meters, if he has just power and speed but no balance, he will fall. If he has balance and speed but no direction, he will miss the lane and jump to somebody else's part and then still cause confusion. So the same is true when we are working as a team. This is independent whether you are the type of company. There cannot be like a one-man show anymore. So whenever we have to make a product come to life, we have to work together. Be it corpos or startups, that is no difference at all. We have to be together. So balance in a team is very important since the early stage when we start a project. By balance means that understanding between two members, understanding of the structure and the responsibilities that we all have in a team, and respecting that. Direction is also important because we should have a common vision. Most of the time we take it for granted that everybody understands what the vision, what the product is, but sometimes, in some cases, especially with startups, even the CEOs doesn't know. And they think they know, but they are not sure themselves. So sometimes when you work in a project and you jump in these startups that have 1 or 2 years old, that they just got the first financing, and you talk to the CTO and he tells you something, a different vision from the CEO, and you talk with the product owner and he tells a completely different one, and then you jump in the team and you are responsible now to lead this design. And how do you start? Like when the first people that are the ones on top of you tell you completely different things. So direction is very important because as a team leader then, or the leader of the project, people will start looking at you. So let's go to how it looks like for the startups. Most of the time this is the most common thing, and by startups I mean companies that have been formed from 4 to 5 years, that have got 10 to 15 people, and now they are scaling to, they've got the Series A financing, let's say, round up, and now they want to scale to 100 or 200 people. Now, they're all about speed, 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 and they're all fast, 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 because for them, the stress of getting the first revenue is very important to them. The first 3 months, 6 months, 1 year that they need to show the results to investors are very important. So the mentality, the general mentality in that is just speed. But what does it mean to us now as designers when we have to lead a product or work in a product? Well, fast means most of the time stress, because it means you are not given the right time to do research properly. So everybody cuts down the research. Oh, yeah, but let's use this library, or let's do it as the competitor, but just move this or just move that. And balance and direction are the two things that suffer the most. And the most reason why is that suddenly, because fast and speed becomes the highest value, everybody starts taking leadership. Everybody starts giving input. And then you have a product owner that behaves as a UX designer who behaves as a developer who now wants to be a project manager, and and then you've got 5 to 6 different people coming to work every week. And on Monday we have these meetings that we all agree, of course, and everything is bright. And then on Tuesday, everybody is working on a different direction. Everybody is working on a feature who he or she thinks is of the highest priority. So then, with no balance, no direction, and speed, most of the time we end up to this, to a free initiative without communication. So where does it lead? In overlap of duties, double work. How many times has it happened that you find out that your coworker or teammate is working on the same feature that you were working, and even though you've put that on your presentation for 3-4 weeks in a row, nobody has noticed, and and then somebody else who was supposed to document on their feature and their part, they didn't do it because they thought that that was not important, and because there is no time to do that, it's supposed that everybody should know by heart what is going on. And quantity over quality becomes the norm. So when there is this kind of anxiety and stress from the startups that we should deliver as fast, then nobody thinks a lot about the quality anymore. It's like, just get things done. Whether what you're doing interferes with somebody or is not at all in coherence with what others are doing, that becomes secondary, because the most important part is coming to those meetings and saying that I did this, that, showing on Jira tickets how many tickets you've opened and closed, and then we run into fear and uncertainty, because when we're talking about nowadays for design projects and important projects, it takes time. It takes at least 6 to 9 months, a year, maybe 2, to develop a proper product, a product that can bring revenue, a product that can strive in the market. It's not like that you can jump in and work for 2 months, deliver, and then done. But for 6 months, 1 year or more, people in a team, be it UX designers or developers and other team members, have to work together, because otherwise things cannot get done. But during this time, it is important to ask ourselves, what are our motivations? Because sometimes, for example, when I was leading certain projects, I knew, for example, that the moment a certain UI designer wanted to push for a cool effect, he was applying for a new job. Whenever a developer was asking to change suddenly the library, and all of a sudden was convincing all other developers to move from Angular to React, for example, for sure he was also applying for a job. But the worst case scenario is not when the person leaves the company, causes all the trouble. The worst scenario is when he stays. Like when for 3-4 months the person tries to do all that he can to show up as quickly as possible everything on the CV, even though the product is not ready, and then stays because maybe he was offered a better deal or whatever reason. Because then he finds himself with a mess he has created for the wrong reasons, having tools and products that are not the right ones for the product that we're using. And now what he does is he will start spreading up the blame, because he knows that he created it, but he cannot, he'll not be able to accept that. So the consequences of our actions become very important. Nowadays, for example, I believe most of us work in Scrum teams with 7 to 9 people, even more. Sometimes as designers we are also involved in 2-3 teams simultaneously. And now working together by keeping the direction and keeping the balance and the right speed becomes highly important, because the consequences of our actions have a big and long impact. Now the person that goes and does this, that pushes for a CV production, a way of motivating himself, then the person, if the upper management or somebody from the management doesn't correct this, then somebody else will take this for granted that this is the culture and the norm of the company. So another one starts doing it after 2-3 months. Because if it worked for somebody, then it will work for another one. If this is the way to get a raise in the company, suddenly everybody starts doing that. And then it's who suffers the most from this, from all of this, is the product. Because then if you see at the startups, or not at the mature startups, exactly these startups that are almost becoming companies, but they are always a wannabe company. They think they have structure, but they have not, because still they are run by the most trusted people, not of the people that bring the most value. You see companies, for example, that want to scale from 15 people to 170 in a matter of 6 months, and then who is put on charge? Those that started from the beginning. But nobody dares to ask the questions if these people who started from the beginning are the right ones to lead, because to lead you need different qualities than when you are inside a small team. You may have very, very skilled people, and there may be very, very skilled developers or designers, but they are not able to lead people, because to lead people you need different qualities, and one of those qualities is to give up being creative somehow. You have to step down a little bit from your creative process. From if you want to be a creative UX designer or a developer, or you like both, then you have to give up, because you have to manage other people. You have to go to these one-on-one meetings or other issues. You have to suddenly deal with conflicts or things that you were not aware of before. So that's why it is important to always take responsibility for our actions and have a long-term vision. Now, with corporations, we have a different situations. From my experience, at least, in corporations, you always are guaranteed balance and direction, except speed. Corporations are all about structures and resources, and again, structures and meetings, and then meetings. And sometimes you find yourself in situations when you have a pre-meeting, which lasts about 15 to 20 minutes, and then you have the meeting, which is around 1 hour, and then you have a post-meeting immediately after this meeting, which goes around 90 minutes. It's even longer than the meeting itself. And then just the time when you think that it's over, no, there is the meeting planning for next week. So as a UX designer or a creative person, the biggest struggle in corporations is managing time. Because, for example, in my last experience, I was working for a major corporation in finance, in financial institutions from Switzerland. And we were working in 4 different continents, different time zones. And I knew, for example, that on Tuesday I couldn't do any creative work. The whole day was meetings. Because if you go on a 3 to 4 hours meeting, even if you have like 30 minutes break, the day is over. Like creatively, the day is over. That if you start at 9 with the first meeting and you end up at 2 p.m., then whatever hours are left, you are done. It's like the maximum you can do is get some feedback and talk to people. So what is important when working in corporations is becoming responsible and aware that you will not find a startup there. They promise it, and of course nowadays in corporations you have like free coffee, fresh fruits, you can flexible working hours. I mean, startups now have to do more than that and promise this. But on the other hand, you cannot escape from meetings and the speed. The speed is very slow. If you come from a startup environment when there is a lot of stress and anxiety, and you learn to work fast, then coming to this and having to work in a team together with other people, you will not find that, especially if the other team members are people that have worked for 3-4 years or even more in corpus. They have a different pace. So now how to make things run faster? One way, for example, especially when you are given the position or the authority of leader, it comes, the most common thing that comes to mind traditionally is to boss around, but that doesn't work. Like giving orders and reminding people of their duties doesn't work at all, especially if you're working via Skype. With corporations, don't even use camera, it's only, you never meet the people. That doesn't work. What works is bringing in engagement, is bringing in enthusiasm and facilitating. Now we are, in a way, we are lucky for the profession that we do, because it's a creative one. And people always, we forget, because we hang around between ourselves and we take everything for granted, but others see us as inspiring people. So a product owner or somebody or a BA who just sees Excel sheets, and then he comes around and curiously sees around like what we are doing, they become inspired, because we work with colors, with graphics, with research, and we interact with people. So taking these things that we do and spreading it around, bringing in engagement in people, in the team, bringing in enthusiasm, is how you motivate people for a long-term commitment. Because again, you can motivate people in a meeting or in an after party, but that doesn't last more than 3 days or maximum a week. But how do you make people give their best for 6 months, 9 months in a row, and bring out the best and have this feeling of commitment and working together, especially when people are not in the same room. With startups, most of the startups work together. Even if there are 100 to 200 people, they share the same space and building. You can go and talk to people. But when you work in different continents even, then you never meet the people. So there are ways how we can bring passion in people. And that is also by facilitating. So one thing that I've learned is that the more exposed you are, the more that you show how you work, the more you engage people, even when you know the right solution, still creating a workshop, for example, presenting 2-3 variations, or even better, presenting just one and making them create, other non-technical people create their own ideas, and having them vote, for example, creates a lot of engagement. So even in corporations, nobody likes to be told. I guess we all don't like to be told that, okay, this is it. I did this, and now you go on and do it. So people, as people and as team members, we want to be engaged in that. And as UX designers, we can do that. We can create that kind of atmosphere where people feel that their contribution matters. So whenever, for example, you are in a position of leading a project or leading an idea, you have to make people come together. And facilitating always helps. It's very easy to go on a corner and say, oh, nobody's working, nobody's doing anything, they're not following me. Like going in that corner of complaining, it's very easy, we can all do it. But then in the end of the day, the question is always, what can I do more? Is there anything I can do more? It's also easy when you are in a team of designers, because then you can motivate a little bit, like as a group. But what if you are alone? If you are the only designer in a team of developers, product owners, project managers, and your teammates as designers are working in different projects. Now you've got your project, they've got theirs. Okay, you can work, like you can complain together or talk things together, but things you have to do, it's with your team. So in that moment, one of the biggest shifts in mentality that I had when I started my career and now was just this. Starting to think of what can I do? What kind of tools or things we do as designers and methodologies that we use that I can share with non-design or non-technical people to bring in engagement. And this always helps. In the end of the day, from all the experiences that I've had, it has always come to just this, to 3 things: communication, trust, and transparency. And no matter how I think which is most important or who is one that is more important, I haven't found that answer. I think that the 3 of them are just one package, because each contributes to the other. I guess the main difference is always the trust. Like the sooner you enter in a team and the sooner you gain trust of people, the better it is. The sooner they understand your logic behind things, the sooner they understand that, okay, design is not like painting, that you didn't just wake up in the morning and think, oh, I'm going to put this here and this there and put some colors now and everything is going bright. The sooner they understand all the logic and the work behind the scenes, the better it becomes and the more they will be willing to follow us. So because this is the issue, like we are in there in between people, we don't have the power to force things to people because suddenly, for example, a developer says, no, your solution will take me 4 months. Maybe you know that it's only 2 weeks, but he's in charge and he says 4 months and others believe him. So how do you make, even if it takes 4 months, how do you make a person do it with passion and give his best even though it will cause him a lot of work? Extra work, for example. And unless they trust you, and unless there is transparency, by transparency I mean letting people know about the processes and the reasons why we do things. Like going in a meeting and just presenting, okay, this is the outcome, the layout, done, it's not going to work. If you say that we did the research or we did this and based on the feedback and based on the opinions of other team members, here we are, then you gain trust. And then the key of gaining with both of them, trust and transparency, is communication. In many cases, for example, I was scared about working with stakeholders in the beginning because everybody was, whenever you join a new corporation, everybody is like, oh, be aware of the stakeholders. But then stakeholders are people like us. I mean, are just people in charge of doing a certain thing in their zone, and they are passionate about what they do. So me personally, I never had any problems also managing stakeholders, even important people in corporations, because they are passionate and they also have a different vision, and the only thing that matters is asking. So if you ask them, for example, what is their opinion about the product, they will give you so much valuable feedback, and very different one from everybody else, because usually stakeholders think in 5 to 10 years. Maybe it will not come true what they think, but it's all about budgets, and they know the product from a higher perspective, so they can give a better feedback and a different one that we are not used to see. So in the end of the day, leading a project or leading an idea is just leading by example, moving by giving the example. Again, when we as people and as designer have balance of thought and a vision of direction and integrity, then others will definitely follow. It's very hard I know it's very hard to bring them in. It's very hard to remind of this every day, especially when you have stressful situations. But when you are in charge or when you are in a leading position, I guess 70% of the time should be just this, remembering that we are the ones that we are going to be looked up at. Like all the eyes when you are leading a project, whether you have the competence or not, especially the most difficult position is when you are not really a team leader, but you are leading a project. And this is and you are in between a team that have their own leaders, team leaders. And this is even more complicated because people will look up to you for solutions and for direction, but then you don't have also the competence to give orders, let's say, or your say is not the final say. So you are just there in between. And then in that moment, based on my experience at least, what has worked always best is to just give the example. If I see that certain people are not motivated and I know that they can do twice or thrice more, I have to do thrice more or even more, because then the others will see, and they will see that I care, and because I care, they will start caring, and they will feel the importance of that. And again, the most difficult part is doing this every day for a long period of time. It's very easy to do this for 1-2 days, but being in that position when you, for 6 or 9 months or a year, you have to be in this kind of level. It is not easy, but it's up to now is the only way that I have found that works. So thank you very much. If you have any questions.